Hello there, and then welcome to a brand new lesson. This is How Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. I do hope you are doing well. We are still on the properties of real numbers, and this time around, we are looking at the identity and the inverse property. Without much ado, let's quickly look into it. So, what is the concept of identity, first of all? So, the identity, it simply involves a special number, right, which you call the identity element. So when you take that identity element and you combine it with any other number, the answer you get leaves it unchanged. What do I mean by that? Let's say, for instance, you have 2 times the number 1. 2 times the number 1. The number we have here is 2. If we multiply it by 1, what do you get? You still get 2. If we take 4 times the number 1, what do you still have? You still have your 4. You realize that any number at all you multiply by 1, it remains unchanged. You see, the same way, if you are to add to 0, so if I'm to add infinity, or let's say if you are to add 2 to 0, what happens? You still have your 2. If you are to add 4 to 0, what happens? You still have your 4. So when it comes to multiplication, if we multiply any number by 1, we still get the same number. And when it comes to addition, if we add any number to 0, we still get the same number. This gives us two identities. We call it the additive identity and the multiplicative identity. Let me take that again. We call it what? The additive identity and the multiplicative identity. So with that said, we would say that when you add 0 to any number, the number retains its identity. Okay, and hence 0 is the additive identity. Also, talking of the multiplicative identity, it says when you multiply any number at all by 1, the number retains its identity. You see, and as you can see here, a times 1 still gives us a, which makes it retain its identity. This is the basis for the identity property. Now, as time goes on, when we go to binary operations and all that, we would dive into this so that we solve some questions. On the other hand, let's look at the inverse property. The inverse property. Now, before we look at the inverse property, we have established the fact that 0 and 1 are the identity properties for addition and then multiplication respectively. Now, if we take examples such as 2 minus 2, what do we get? We get a 0. Do you see that? Okay. Now, what if you take 4 and then plus negative 4? So let me write this also that way. That also gives you 0. Now, we know the 0 is the identity property for what? Addition. And as you can see, we are adding two numbers and we are getting the identity property as well. What is happening here? You realize that we are adding 2 to its inverse. You see, we are adding 2 to its inverse. So the inverse property we are looking at here involves combining a number with its opposite, or in other words, its inverse, to return to the neutral identity element. You see, so we have established the fact that 0 is the identity for addition. What do you want to do to 2 to give it that identity? That number is what we call the inverse. You see, then when we come to multiplication 2, we establish the fact that the 1 is the multiplicative identity. Now, if I have my 2 and I multiply it by 1 over 2, what does it give me? It gives me a 1. So we would say that this 1 over 2 here is the inverse of 2 because it is giving me the identity element in terms of multiplication. You see, so the same way, if I have my 4 and I multiply it by 1 over 4, I am also going to get a 1. Why? Because this cancels this. It is so because 1 over 4 is the inverse, that is the multiplicative inverse of 4, such that when we multiply them together, we are getting what? The multiplicative identity, which is 1. So then let's look at the note on this. So then for the additive inverse, we say when you add a number to its negative, that is its opposite, the result is the additive identity. Do you see that? And the rule will just be what? A plus negative A will give us what? 0. That is the additive identity. All real numbers obey this rule. You see, they all obey this rule. Then talking of the multiplicative inverse as well. So the multiplicative inverse, into bracket, the reciprocal, on the other hand, is saying that when you multiply a number by its reciprocal, the result is the multiplicative identity. You see, and we can simply write that as A. If you multiply a number by its reciprocal, that is 1 over A, you are always going to get a 1. You see. So that is that. Now let's look at some questions that involves these properties, just 3 of them, then we can end that. So these will be very, very simple. The first question says you have to state the property illustrated by each equation. So for the very first one, it says x plus 0 is equal to x. Now analyzing it, you realize that if you add 0 to the x, nothing changes. And what property are we talking about when you want to add 0? That is the identity property, because nothing is going to change. You see, so this is the identity property of addition. That is the property that is demonstrated or shown over here. You see, then for the second one, 2 over 5 times 5 over 2 gives us a 1. What is happening here? You are multiplying a number by its reciprocal, and then the result is giving you 1. The result is giving us 1. That is the inverse property of multiplication. The inverse property of multiplication. So with that said, let's look at the next question. It says, find the additive inverse and the multiplicative inverse for the number negative 1 over 4. So we have negative 1 over 4. All right. And then the additive inverse is such that if you add it to the number, you are going to get what? A 0. That is the additive identity. So what number do we need to add to negative 1 over 4 to give us a 0? It is just its what? Opposite. So we negate the sign. Okay. So that is the negative of the number we have been given. The number we have been given here being what? Negative 1 over 4. Easy. And applying negative times negative, we know that gives us a positive. You see, so you have negative 1 over 4, then plus your 1 over 4. Evaluating this gives you what? A 0. So we are going to say that it implies our 1 over 4 is the additive inverse of negative 1 over 4. As simple as that. We are being asked also for the multiplicative inverse. Now, we know that if we have negative 1 over 4, what number are we using to multiply the negative 1 over 4 so that it will give us what? 1. That is the multiplicative identity. And we said it is its reciprocal. Its reciprocal. Its reciprocal is then going to be what? A negative 4. So you realize that if we are to multiply these together, the 4 cancels out your 4. And then you have a negative 1 times your negative 1. which will give you what? A 1. You see? So this also do imply that -4 is the multiplicative inverse of your -1/4. As simple as that. In view of that, we will end here, and then as usual, I'll leave you with some exercises just for you to try to test your understanding. So these are just 4 questions we have here. The first one, what is the multiplicative inverse of 10? The second, you have to state the property that you see there. And then which identity property is shown by the equation 3 times x equals 3? Then what must be the value of x? And the last one, you have to find the additive inverse of -2.5 and the multiplicative inverse of 5/2. That is all for this lesson on the identity and then the inverse properties. If this is your first time on this channel and you think it is or it will be of help to you, you can choose to subscribe so that anytime I release a video, you'll be notified as well. This is How Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. See you in our next lesson, and bye for now. Stay blessed.